She wasn't supposed to survive the night. The doctors had already said their goodbyes, and the media called it a tragedy waiting to fade. But no one expected him. A boy everyone ignored, a face society looked past. To walk into that hospital and change everything. What he did that night didn't just save her life. It exposed a truth about race, privilege, and courage that the world still refuses to see. This is the story they tried to silence, until now. Before that night, Maya Thompson's life was perfect, at least from the outside. The daughter of one of the city's wealthiest families, she had everything people dream about. Private schools, charity galas, and a name that opened doors before she even knocked. But behind the smiles and polished photos, Maya was sick, a rare heart condition that no amount of money could fix. Across town, Eli Carter lived in a different world entirely. 16 years old, working part-time at a grocery store, and saving every dollar for his mother's medicine. Their paths were never meant to cross, not in a world still divided by invisible lines of class and color. Then came the announcement. Maya had just one day left to live, her family's mansion filled with reporters, flashing cameras, and desperate prayers. And miles away, Eli watched the news on a flickering TV screen, not knowing that fate was about to pull him into her story in a way that would challenge everything he'd ever believed about who gets to be a hero. Because by the next sunrise, the world would know both their names, and nothing would ever be the same again. Eli didn't know why he couldn't stop thinking about her. Maybe it was the news anchor's voice, trembling as she said, "No donor match found." Maybe it was the photo they kept showing. Maya, smiling in a hospital gown, her eyes too alive for someone running out of time. That night, while his mother slept, Eli searched online. Hours of reading, medical forums, donor registries, anything. He didn't have money or influence, but he had something stronger: determination. And then, buried deep on a message board, he found it, a post describing a rare blood and tissue type identical to his. The next morning, Eli called the hospital. He was nervous, stumbling over his words as he said, "I think I might be a match for Maya Thompson." But the nurse's tone changed the moment he mentioned his name and address. "Sir, that's not how our system works," she said, her politeness thin as glass. Hours later, no one called back. He tried again. Different departments, different voices. Every time the same cold wall, until finally one voice whispered, "You're not on their list." People like you never are. Eli's stomach dropped. He didn't need her to explain. By the time the sun set, he had made a decision. He walked miles to the hospital, wearing his best shirt, pressed and faded. Security stopped him at the entrance. "Visiting hours are over," the guard said, eyes narrowing. But when Eli held up the printed lab results he'd paid half his savings for, something in his voice broke through. "Please, just tell them I can help her." Minutes turned into hours. People walked past, doctors, reporters, nurses, all too busy to see the boy who refused to leave, until a nurse finally approached him, tears in her eyes. "Wait here," she said, "upstairs, chaos." Maya's condition had worsened. Machines blaring, family shouting. A doctor's words sliced through the noise. "She won't make it until morning." And then the door opened. The nurse entered, whispering something to Maya's father, the man who owned half the city. His face twisted in disbelief. "A grocery clerk? This stuff is ridiculous." But Maya's mother stepped forward. "If he's a match, we try." Down the hallway, Eli was led to a chair, trembling. For the first time, someone smiled at him, not with pity, not with judgment, but with hope. Yet as he waited, whispers filled the corridor. Reporters were already outside. People online questioned the story, not with gratitude, but venom. Publicity stunt. Can't trust his kind. They'll say anything for money. Eli saw it all, the comments, the hate, the doubt. He wanted to leave, but then he remembered Maya's photo, the girl with the two bright eyes. So he stayed. And as the doctors prepared the room, one question echoed in his mind. Would they still see him as a hero if they knew what he had to give up to save her? The operating room lights burned white against Eli's skin. His heart pounded louder than the machines around him. Every instinct screamed to run, not from fear of pain, but from the weight of it all. The world outside had already decided what he was. Not a savior. Not a match. Just a story they could twist. In another wing of the hospital, Maya's monitors flatlined for 3 long seconds. Her father shouted orders. Doctors scrambled. The transplant was her only chance, and Eli was her only hope. Then came the chaos. A board member burst in, waving a clipboard. "This procedure hasn't been authorized," he snapped. "We can't risk her life or our reputation on this." Eli froze. His hands clenched the edge of the gurney. His voice was shaking but steady. "You don't have to believe in me. Just let me try." For a moment, no one moved. Then Maya's mother, tears streaking her face, whispered, "Do it!" The doctors moved fast. Needles, monitors, a rush of commands. Eli felt the world tilt as the anesthesia crept in. Just before the darkness took him, he heard one voice through the static, the surgeon's. "He's stable. Starting the transfer." Hours passed. Outside the hospital, cameras flashed. The story had broken. Unknown black teen risks life to save millionaire's daughter. But for every headline praising his courage, hundreds of comments dripped with doubt and hate. "He's doing it for fame. It's all staged. They don't belong in the same story." And as Maya's heartbeat flickered back to life, Eli's began to fade. His body had given everything it could. The doctor whispered, "He's crashing." Maya's mother covered her mouth. Her husband stood frozen, the man who once said, "Not our kind," now powerless to stop the boy from saving his child. Then, silence. One monitor steady, the other flat. 2 lives connected by blood, but divided by the world watching. And as the room filled with tears, one question hung in the air. Would they remember the color of his skin, or the heart that saved her life? The world woke up to 2 headlines the next morning, one celebrating a miracle and another quietly burying a tragedy. "Millionaire's daughter saved after historic transplant," they wrote. But somewhere beneath those bright words, Eli's name appeared only once, in fine print. Maya lived. Her heartbeat, once fading, is now strong and steady. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was her parents, the same people who once looked past the boy who saved her. They whispered gratitude and promised change, but as the cameras rolled in, something inside Maya broke. She asked one simple question. "Where is he?" No one answered. Eli's mother stood outside that same hospital, holding a small photo of her son. No reporters came to her door, no awards, no interviews, just silence. The kind that swallows heroes the world refuses to see. Weeks later, Maya left the hospital. She began to speak, not about her recovery, but about the truth. About the boy who gave her life when no one else would. She said his name over and over until the world finally listened. Eli Carter. That name started something. A movement. A conversation. Because his story wasn't just about a heart. It was about humanity. About the walls we build between race and worth, and how one act of courage can tear them down. Eli didn't live to see the world change. But because of him, it did. Scholarships in his name. Hospitals are reviewing bias policies. And one young woman, who now used her privilege to fight the prejudice that once blinded her world. Maybe that's what true justice looks like. Not revenge, but remembrance. Not shouting louder, but listening deeper. Because sometimes the ones who change everything never get to see it. So the question remains, how many more hearts must stop before we finally learn to see beyond color?